Welcome to the Crash the Pond podcast. It is a Monday, December 20th edition of the show. Jake, we are 5 days away from Christmas. 5 days away. Let me ask you this. Let me put you completely on the spot here. Have you been naughty or nice?
I mean, let me just throw that back at you. Do you think I've been naughty or do you think I've been nice? Feels kind of weird saying that to you.
I think I can make a case either way, to be honest with you. I think you've had your naughty moments and you've had your nice moments. We'll see what the man with the beard decides though. Come Christmas night.
Could you say that I'm very nice and very evil?
Nah. I think you skew nice.
Yeah. Sorry, that was a wrestling reference for a deep wrestling reference.
I didn't even
for a lot of people.
Why would you try that on me? Why would you try?
No,
that?
I knew you wouldn't get it. That was simply just for Hey Yo D-Flow.
Okay, fair enough. I mean that's worth it. That's worth it.
Yeah, exactly.
I do want to give a quick shout out because I'm just before we get to anything important, anything meaningful. I want to give a quick shout out to Rex Hazar, who I think is Will in our Discord, who left us a review, a 5-star Apple Podcast review.
Instead of doing it at the end, we're just doing it at the front.
I'm just getting it out of there right now because it's just so worth it. By the way, if you enjoy the show, go leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. But he left us a 5-star rating with the title, my favorite title of a review in the history of the show. Maybe with all due respect to the previous reviews, burritos are a hand food. Thank you. Oh my God. Thank you so much.
Wait, before you read it, can I just say, I love that if someone's like trying to discover Ducks podcasts, that they're going to go to our show, they're going to look at the reviews and just see this as the subject.
Yeah, they're going to be like, wait, is this a ducks? Like, is this about like cooking ducks? Like, is this about food? Like what, where's the hockey in all of this? But anyway, so to the meat of this review though, as you try to filibuster it, what's next? Jake eating a burger with a fork and knife? Good podcast, great analysis, entertaining hosts. Join the Discord. It's a lot of fun. I agree, Jake. What is next? Are you gonna tell us that you eat your burger with a fork and knife?
I've done it before.
No.
Yeah, if you get a really greasy burger that's too soggy on the bun.
Do I just leave this pod right now?
Have you never gotten like a burger?
Do I just call it a night right now?
Have you never gotten a burger that's so like greasy that you're just like, screw it, I'm gonna eat it with a fork and knife?
No, because I am willing. I'm the captain that goes down with the ship.
I mean, most of the time I don't, but every once in a while, in a blue moon,
I'm grabbing that thing and just sink or swim. We're getting through it.
Actually, no, it's not grease. It's usually the fact that the burger's like actually a really high quality burger and there's a lot of juices that come out of it.
Well, usually it's because they haven't let the beef rest long enough, so there's just like beef juice flowing out.
There we go.
Anyway,
that's what people want to hear.
I made burgers over the weekend, so I have knowledge about this. My burgers did not explode into juice on first bite. Anyway, so thank you so much for that review. Honestly means the world. Any chance we can take to dunk on Jake's food takes is welcome, to be honest with you. Okay, let's get to the news of the week. Let's just get this one out of the way really quickly. The Ducks are in a little bit of a break. Let's just put it that way. Their next 3 games against Oilers, Flames, and Canucks have all been postponed. The NHL is going to be on pause this week for a few days. Getting heavy March 2020 vibes right now from the NHL, but it's all well and good for the Ducks. At least they have only had one positive COVID case this season. That was Jakob Chychrun weeks ago now. Somehow have managed to not have any positives, and they have played teams that have had outbreaks as recently as Friday. So knock on every piece of wood that's around you there. I guess just your thoughts really quickly here on this situation that's consuming all of our lives one way or another.
Yeah, I think overall, obviously, it's scary, and I think you first and foremost go back to kind of March 2020 and everything that happened there. And I think as maybe a little bit of a glimmer of hope for everyone out there is that as of kind of now, I think the benefit now is that we know how to deal with this. And if it comes down to that, the league has already successfully been able to navigate this all of last year with teams not necessarily being ravaged by COVID. I mean, the Ducks, one player, Jakob Silfverberg, is the only Ducks player to ever get COVID, right?
To actually test positive, because they've had false positives.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Larson, Henrique, yeah.
That's right. I forgot about that. But so there have been ways to do it. The question is just how far do the mitigation methods need to go once we know more about Omicron and everything that comes with it. And so I think that the shutdown's a good idea. I think just being able to let everyone get home, let everyone enjoy the holidays, because the first thing to really come out of this week before the league shutting everyone down was that they were shutting down all cross-border travel, and that's what came out, what was it, Sunday, I believe. And the Ducks were set to play in Calgary tonight, or not Calgary, Edmonton tonight. They were supposed to play in Calgary tomorrow, but Calgary had all their games canceled because of COVID.
Yeah, so Edmonton tonight, Calgary, yeah.
Calgary tomorrow, but that was canceled before the cross-border travel. And then Vancouver on Thursday. And so due to the fact of, I mean, you and I actually, I think in the watch along on Friday, discussed this briefly about what do they do when someone gets COVID in Canada. I know that if you're in the States, it's hard to go back to Canada because of their quarantine rules. And so I think from the perspective of these are human beings, and I know that you and I sometimes talk about it very coldly and talk about the league and assess players as assets in some ways. These are human beings, and I think it's important to mention that, and that these guys being stuck quarantining in a different country potentially for 2 weeks and missing Christmas with their family, that's a really tough situation for the league to have. So I think with it running rampant throughout the league, with it being a smart idea to shut down just in the first place, to let every team kind of get their ducks in order and get their protocols in place, and essentially allowing players to have the ability to spend time with their family as compared to potentially being stuck in a hotel for 2 weeks if they were to catch it as it's spreading. So I think this was honestly a no-brainer for the league. And I think it's one where they can come back with enhanced protocol to stop it from spreading. And I mean, the real question now is what happens to the schedule. And I think that's the biggest question of Canada and the border is a big question mark. And so what happens there? And so these are all a lot of what ifs. I've listened to a lot of hockey podcasts today from that are way more in the know than us, which is where kind of this conversation is coming from for me. And so there's a lot of question marks out there, and what happens with the divisions, what happens with the Canadian teams, and do we just have an imbalanced schedule? So there's a lot of questions right now. I think as of right now, as a hockey fan, I'm happy that they're taking a little bit of a break and allowing these teams to get things in order and figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give my 2 cents on this, and we can, like, I will first and foremost say this: we all want to be done with COVID-19. Like, we all want to put this behind us. We all want to go back, right, to life pre-pandemic. However, we can't force it either, right? We can't just turn a blind eye to what's going on. And, you know, you hear Steve Yzerman say that asymptomatic players should play, or, you know, some degree of some version of that. And the NFL is doing that. I think people aren't understanding that the more, if you have asymptomatic players playing, they can transmit, and you're going to end up getting more symptomatic players that way, right? So we all want this to be over. I sympathize with that, but at the end of the day, got to mitigate, right? Go back to what worked last season. Like, we have some tried and true methods, right? Wear masks in the locker room, wear masks at team facilities during workouts, you know, ventilate. There's so many different things you can do to clamp down on this, because if you look at the protocols that were in place this season up to this point, like, calling them protocols is almost charitable, because they weren't really doing much of anything to mitigate, because the assumption was pre Omicron that you maybe didn't need to do as much when guys were vaccinated. Clearly the goalposts have shifted. The science has gotten further along, and we now know that it's not enough what they were doing. So come back after this break with ironclad mitigation measures, and I think that they can get through the season. It's just how far are they willing to go? Because the NFL has decided we're just going to let it rip. We're going to let asymptomatic players have loosened protocols. We're going to have testing be a lot more laissez-faire, and I think that that's going to come back to bite them severely.
And I think the stark difference, though, also between the NFL and NHL in this situation is the NFL, first off, is nearing the end of their season. So they're almost at the finish line. And then you add in the fact that travel isn't as intensive.
Easier to coordinate. Yeah,
travel isn't as intensive, and at the end of the day, it's outside, which is helpful. The factors working against the NHL is the fact that it's inside in a poorly ventilated space, the fact that it's constant travel, the fact that there's all these things working against it. So I think you're right. And this is, I think this will probably be the last we talk about COVID on this pod. Probably not, knowing how things are. But I think that the good news here, I think, is that there is a way for the league to continue. It's just how far do the measures have to go in terms of rescheduling and restructuring the league? And that's my biggest question, because the protocols, we know what they are. The league knows what they can do to keep this in check. And so at the end of the day, they can always go back to that. It's just how far do they have to go with it?
The NHL got through an entire season with no vaccines. And look, it wasn't perfect. I mean, ask the Vancouver Canucks about that. It wasn't perfect at all. And now the disease itself has gotten, but exponentially more contagious. But there is a way to do this, to mitigate. And that way is not to just kind of close your eyes and just hope for the best. I think that there's steps that they can take. And I will say that good on the Ducks to have made it this far with only one positive. I really hope that it stays that way. Dallas Eakins spoke about how they've done what they can, how they've tried to be smart. And even though I'm sure he's right, I think that there's also a component of that just being luck, right? I mean, at the end of the day. But this is something he's talked about throughout the entire pandemic. So maybe there is something to that. Maybe they are taking it more seriously. Maybe a little less reckless on the road, right? Not going out quite as much. I mean, those are all things that matter at the end of the day.
I think one of the positive things that Dallas Eakins does is his ability to get messages across, right?
Yeah,
from a coaching perspective on ice, or the way that he talks and everything like that, and leadership in that way. And I think he, in some ways, the preaching that he always does in media conferences about discipline, I think that applies to these situations, and I think he probably does a good job of getting the message across to his players that they have to be disciplined in these situations off the ice.
Yeah, and I fully believe that, because again, it could just be dumb luck that the Ducks have been so unscathed throughout the 2 COVID seasons now, but maybe there is something to that. Maybe the guys aren't being as reckless on the road, because I saw a comment from Erik Karlsson today that there's basically, he's said a version of, there's nothing you can do. We're all going to get it at some point. You can do everything right and it doesn't matter. And yeah, that could be true, that you could still get unlucky, but we're a stats heavy show. You can put the percentages on your side if you try, right? Yeah. And I think that there may just be teams that have not really given that much of a shot.
So real quick, let's just end with this. There was I'm curious if you heard this, but Jeff Merrick actually on his podcast last week brought up a very interesting and I think salient point about all of this in terms of the vaccination, or not vaccinated, but in terms of testing and testing asymptomatic players, everything like that. And it was something that he said he spoke with a doctor about, and they kind of brought up this point, or I forgot exactly who he said he was speaking to, but they brought up the point of, if you went to a party and there was a bowl of M&Ms and you knew one of them was poisoned and would make you sick, would you go through that and still eat from that bowl of M&Ms, knowing that one of those M&Ms that you would eat could potentially make you sick and very ill? And the answer is no. I think unequivocally for everyone, no. And so why take that risk? Why go through that? And that's essentially what you're dealing with in this situation, is you're going into this kind of open bowl that there could be someone there that's asymptomatic and they don't know it.
Right, exactly. And that's the thing, is that we don't want guys to be infected, because here's the reality. Even if you're asymptomatic, you can still develop you can still have long-term effects from asymptomatic COVID. And it's just probabilities, right? Even if you have a X% chance, right, of being fine each time, or let's say you have a slightly lower chance of catching it each time, but you have multiple exposures, one after the other, you're rolling the dice every single time, right? And at a certain point, you're going to come up with the wrong number. So I'm really hopeful that the NHL is going to kind of bear down here, and I think that they'll find a way. I mean, it hasn't been pretty, their decision making so far. They basically got forced into taking a break, because I don't think this is what they wanted. So we'll see. Anyway.
All right. So that was 14 minutes of COVID talk.
No.
So
we've been doing the pod. Well, we've been recording for 15 minutes. So there's no way we're doing all 15 about just that.
Yeah, fair. Okay. All right. Moving on, or anything else?
Yeah, no, I think here's what I'm very curious about now is that, so did we already talk about the Olympics?
Oh yeah, they're basically being canceled.
Yeah. What I'm very curious about now is the NHL is going to use that Olympic break to play the postponed games. We saw it in 2019-20 what the NHL did in terms of like draft order, playoff system, right? There was a lot of adjustment that happened, and we're not close to there yet, a season being canceled. But do you foresee anything like that down the road?
No.
Or are they going to get through all 82?
I think they're going to get through all 82.
Okay.
I'm pretty confident that they're going to get through all 82. I think they're going to find a way to make it happen. I mean, they went out of their way to get through all 56 games last year had Vancouver playing while the playoffs were going on. So
that's true.
That being said, they're going to go out of their way to make sure all 82 are happening.
Okay. Well, I think I agree, and I think that the science is on their side with that. I think that they can find a way if they if they choose the right measures. Okay. Hopefully everyone bared with us through that. It's the topic du jour, right? We got to talk about it. It's important. It's affecting everybody, right? I mean, I don't know about you, but I've had people text me over the last couple of weeks like, "Hey, my office got shut down, or my office party got canceled." Like this is a thing, so we gotta talk about it. Yep. Okay, let's get to the hockey though. Let's get to the hockey. Now, I want to start with this because everyone loves trade rumors, right?
Yep.
I know you do.
I love it.
I know for damn sure.
Yeah.
That you do, almost disgustingly so. To some.
Wow.
Not me. I love it, but to some people don't like you talking about trading players. I don't know what it is, or who those people might be, but some people don't. Jakob Chychrun is available.
Yeah.
On the trade block. Arizona is obviously selling. They are rebuilding, to put it mildly. I guess just your thoughts on that. First and foremost, is Jakob Chychrun a defenseman from the Arizona Coyotes who is 23? Is he a guy that is of interest to you for this Ducks franchise?
Yes.
Turns 24 in March, I should add.
Yep, turns 24 in March. Looking here, I'll put it up on the screen right now for everyone out there. Looking at his JFrest charts. So this is, if you look at 18-19, he's over the 75th percentile in terms of even strength offense WAR, about 60 some odd percentile for even strength defense. Even strength defense actually went up last year. Even strength offense falls down a little bit. And then this past year, 18-19 was that, 19-20 was where the defense jumped up. And then basically last year and this year combined, the even strength offense has kind of fallen off a little bit when you combine the two seasons, but the defense is still really good. And if you kind of go to this JFresh chart where you can see kind of the transition from last season to this season, I think you can really see the impact that playing in Arizona has had on him in this season. And I think while these charts do isolate player for performance individually, I think there is some aspect of it to play in that team and that system that is just set up to lose. That has to cause an impact on your individual stats and your individual play. So I think kind of all that being said, I think Jakob Chychrun is a fantastic player. And I think that when you look at the timeline of the current Ducks franchise and you look at Chychrun and his contract and the fact that he has, I believe, 3 more years, let me double check that, at 4.6 on his deal, I think that
he's got 3 more.
3 more at 4.6. I think he fits perfectly into the timeline of the Ducks franchise. And I think you have to at least kind of kick some tires on him. I think that Jeff Solomon would be dumb not to.
Yeah, I agree that it's worth inquiring, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is per Elliot Friedman. He has heard that the ask is massive. So I'm thinking that means a good young player, a first-round pick, maybe a roster player, right? That's what massive means in today's NHL.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have more background on the ask. So here is what I think about to start with this Chychrun situation. I think that Chychrun checks a lot of boxes for the Ducks, right? He's a big defenseman. He's younger. He's cost controlled for 3 more years. Like, that is an attractive profile in and of itself. And statistically, an effective player as well. The question becomes, what is it going to take? Because I think that one thing that does make him all the more enticing for the Ducks is that if let's say you do end up trading a Hampus Lindholm, right? This is essentially your Lindholm replacement.
Yep.
And so you're plugging that hole. And so you're essentially having your cake and eating it too, because let's say you trade Lindholm, you get the package that you get there, and you get a Chychrun. You're kind of plugging different holes there while also adding to other parts of your roster. I guess the question for me, though, is the juice worth the squeeze? Is this player worth moving all these chess pieces around?
So let me ask you this, and this is where I'm coming from.
You're just going to dodge my question just altogether?
Sorry, I've been trying to look up. What was your question? I was trying to look up like
well, my question is it worth all this kind of moving heaven and earth to get him?
I think it obviously depends on the ask. I think so. Here's my view of the Ducks right now, just in general, global, big picture perspective on this team. I think this team still should be selling their UFAs. I think that is where they're at. I think they're not in a spot where you keep your UFAs as your own rentals, because let's say you keep them and they leave. The Ducks aren't making a run at the Cup this year. The only way they do is if they get lucky in the playoffs, but more likely than not, they're going to win a round, maybe two, but this is not their year. And you don't want to prioritize this year. If they do win, that's great. That's a lucky or happy
and by
surprise.
The way, I just want to quickly jump in to say that when Jake is saying this is not their year, he's not saying this is for sure not their year. It's just probability this is not their year, right?
Yeah.
Like if you were to bet right now,
well, and
you're not betting on the Ducks. So if you're someone that's running this franchise, you got to run on probability.
Well, and let me ask this question, or let me not ask this question, but kind of pose this to everyone out there, and make sure
pose and ask mean the same thing.
I know. You know what? Just let me go.
Maybe they don't actually. Now I need to check. But
yeah.
Continue.
But so let me put this out there. Is basically if you go all in on this season and you keep your guys, you're essentially making the bet that this is your time to win. And you're not prioritizing your future years. So let me ask you this. Do you think the Ducks have a better chance to win the Cup this year or next year or 2 years down the line, 3 years down the line? To me, the best time is when Trevor Zegras hits 23 and he's in his prime.
Yeah.
23, 24. Yeah. So 3-4 years down the line is going to be their best chance to win a Cup. So the starting next season is, to me, when they start entering their Cup window, because that's when they have these guys pushing into the lineup and making Trevor Zegras is already making a huge step, but even the guys below him, the Jacob Perreault, the Braden Tracy, who's playing well now. All these guys.
He's in that conversation now. Braden Tracy is.
Maybe. Who knows? We'll see.
Okay.
Question marks there.
Well, Mason McTavish.
Yeah, and so when those guys start to come in and start pushing in is when this team is going to be contending. And so that's essentially why you want to, I think globally, you still want to move on from your UFAs, because this is not the year to hold on to your guys as your own rentals to take your run at. You are not looking for 1 year of success. You're looking for a long, sustained run of success.
Decade plus.
Yes. And so when I look at this from the Ducks' perspective, I think they could still be buyers, though. But it has to be for the right potential candidate. And I think Jakob Chychrun checks the boxes for that potential candidate. He's young enough where he's going to have a long-term impact on this franchise. He's good. I think that is one thing that maybe you could push back on, that he hasn't been that great the last year and a half. But how much of that is him? How much of that is systems? How much of that is the Coyotes just being a tire fire? And, I mean, there's the question of, is he a reason that they're a tire fire? There's a lot of question marks there, a part of that. But I think that he's someone that is a really good player that could significantly help out this team. And so where I would go from this is, I don't know how much of the current Ducks system I would be willing to use for Chychrun. What I would be trying to do here, though, is I would be trying to use what I get for Hampus Lindholm and Josh Manson and flip that for Jakob Chychrun. If you get a first and a prospect for Lindholm, let's just say high end, you get a first for Manson. What if you use both of those first and you flip them to Arizona plus another prospect? Maybe if they need Mason McTavish, that'd be a lot of that. 2 firsts and McTavish, I think that's probably too much.
What if they ask for Sasha Pastujov?
2 firsts and Pastujov, I'd probably do it.
Really?
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a big ask, but like, Jacob,
I wouldn't do that.
Okay.
I wouldn't do that. Full stop. Here's the thing.
I mean,
So
yes and no. I mean, I think you're overvaluing. I think you're overvaluing Pastujov there. But regardless, where I would be trying to go at this from is not necessarily breaking up any of the guys that you have in your system that you like and utilizing your assets. Because here's the deal: Arizona doesn't want Hampus Lindholm. Arizona doesn't want Josh Manson. They don't do anything for them this year.
No, zero.
But you can, and this is where trading guys and selling them off is important. Is that you bring assets back that you can then flip. Because you're adding assets to your pool. And
or ideally, if it's a veteran type player, it's a guy who has short term left that they can flip again, like a Derek Grant. Comtois has a year left. Like it would, or I mean, if you were ever able to get Silverberg or Henrique over there, it would have to be someone like that they could recoup at some point.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, do you think it would be 3 first-round equivalent type picks?
I mean,
if they're late first, for instance,
how good is Jakob Chychrun?
I mean, I think the cost certainty on him's huge.
I think that he's a very valuable asset.
Yeah.
In terms of just like we were just saying, he checks all these great boxes. But I guess I'm just more interested in the player, and maybe that's a downfall of my view on this is that I'm not valuing the other components quite as much.
Here's the thing: if he's making 4.6, that sets you up to still be able to go after someone in free agency if you want to.
I guess what I'm undervaluing is how many players are this good that also check all these boxes.
And that's kind of what
probably not very long.
And we just dealt with this. I don't think he's on the level of Jack Eichel per se, but we just dealt with this. Is how many opportunities do you have to get players at this age that are at this at a very good level, a high level. I don't like I said, Jakob Chychrun is not at the level of a Jack Eichel. They're not comparable in that aspect. But from the aspect of time frame wise, fitting what you need, age wise, fitting what you need, and being kind of right exactly where you want them, I think Jakob Chychrun is a great fit.
Yeah, he's young and he's cost controlled, which is the two things that are hard to come by in today's NHL.
Yep.
So from that perspective, I think that it could be worth paying a bit of a premium. But I would still be very careful if I were the Ducks because, for example, moving on from a McTavish, moving on from a Pastujov, maybe this is now pure hyperbole from me, but I still believe that young dynamic forwards are more valuable long-term than defensemen. Like that's kind of the crux of all this to me is that I wouldn't, I would ideally not want to give up someone of that ilk because I think that those guys have more potential to move the needle not long-term than a Chychrun does.
Maybe
just for the on ice product. But of course it's not just about that. There's so much more to consider with the dollars and cents and with the term. And so I think you can make a very reasonable case for it. I think that there are some reasonable objections as well. Like maybe I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth here, but I just don't know if there's a right or wrong here. Am I crazy in saying that?
No, I think that you're valid. I think at the end of the day, like everything, it comes down to what is the ask.
Right. Well, that's the thing that we don't have as much clarity as I would like, because let's say the ask is Comtois
and
first.
What if it's Comtois and the 2 firsts that you potentially get for Lindholm and Manson?
I think that's a lot more palatable, right? Because those firsts are kind of found money. Anyway.
And that's where I'm coming at from this is that you use the found money picks that you get. Right. And you end up flipping that for Jakob Chychrun.
And I think with Comtois, he's a guy who makes sense for Arizona because he has a year left on his deal after this year. And, he's 22. So you still have some time to figure out what he's going to be. And if he's not going to be that, you can trade him to another team, right? So, but if it's someone who has a little more of a little bit more of a ceiling, I mean, Mason McTavish was a 3rd overall pick.
Yeah.
I mean, him and Comtois are not in the same category.
No, they are. And I may have been overshooting it by adding McTavish in there.
I'm not throwing that at you. I'm just saying, like, if this is in the conversation right now, it needs to be.
Would you do McTavish for Chychrun straight up?
Ooh, that is a good question. I don't think I would.
Okay.
I don't think I would because I'd rather. I think that a high level center who's going to be cheap is more of a needle mover than Jakob Chychrun will be.
Yep. Also, I want to make it clear because I'm having hate thrown at me by our good friend Tony Kempafu saying that I hate Saucer Pastujov. I was not the one who brought him up. That was Felix that did. So if you want to say if any of us hate Pastujov, it's Felix.
No, I said I would not trade him.
Yeah, you were the one that brought up his name, though.
Well, I asked that kind of like to test how, like, where you were at.
I know.
I mean,
know.
my thing with Pastujov, like, maybe it's just bias. I mean, it for sure is partly bias, but Pastujov's statistical profile right now, I am just so curious to see that at the NHL level.
Yeah,
right?
No, I completely agree. I think in some ways,
do you want to be the team that trades the next, Braden Point? Basically,
so I guess here's the question on Pastujov is where's his value at to another team? If he's valued properly by the Coyotes, for instance, in terms of where we think his value probably is, then I think it's a fair deal because maybe it lessens what else you have to give up. I guess the issue there is that I think you're kind of leaning towards this, and I think it's the right way to view it, is I don't think NHL teams necessarily would value him properly.
No, I certainly don't think so. I mean, look, he was drafted in the third round.
Exactly.
There's your evidence.
Yeah.
But I think it's just so hard for the Ducks because this is where the decisions, like we've said this all along, right? When we first started doing this show all the way till now in the last 3 years, is that tearing it down is the easy part. Building it back up is much harder because that's when the difficult decisions start.
And these are the types of moves that you have to make to build it up. And I guess that's where I'm looking at this from is where do the Ducks go after they sell? And because this is the big question I keep asking myself, right? Is you sell Lindholm, you sell Manson, you sell Raquel. I think there's a clear path forward at the forward position in terms of who replaces Raquel. It's going to be Comtois, it could be Perreault, it could be Tracy, maybe it could be Pastujov. There's a whole lot of potential there to fill those spots, right? Whereas the left-hand side of defense, I'm not quite as sure who takes Lindholm's spot long term because Josh Maher is not good enough. I think we have enough of a sample size to say that
what gave that away?
Yeah, Josh Maher is not there. Simon Benoit also third pairing defenseman. Henry Thrune's left-hand shot, but who knows how long it's going to take him to develop. Olin Zellweger is a lefty, but I guess he plays the right side at Everett. But I mean, he's 18.
We just don't know yet.
He's 18. He's still 2 or 3 years away from being in the NHL.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say.
Yeah,
this is the hard part.
Well, and so that's kind of where I'm coming at this from is how do you build this team after you move on from Lindholm, after you move on from Manson? Where do things go? Who jumps in and fills those spots that are open? So that's kind of where the Jakob Chychrun thought has come into my head of left-hand shot defenseman under contract for a reasonable term, doesn't prohibit you from signing your Jamie Drysdales, your Trevor Zegras, your Troy Terrys, all these guys to the bigger term, the bigger contracts that they're going to want. And it could set you up to have a Jakob Chychrun, Jamie Drysdale pairing for a long time.
Yeah, like, again, I think that there's a fine case to make. To me, it all comes down to the cost. Because if we're talking about a Comtois with picks that you didn't have to begin with, that's one thing. But if we're talking about Comtois plus a prospect, maybe one of your own, like, it's just, it could go a few different ways, right? I mean, if you're the Coyotes, you're in the driver's seat because ultimately you're the one that's fielding the different offers.
Yeah.
Again, my philosophy on this and why I was more bullish on Eichel, and like you already mentioned, worth re-mentioning, is that Eichel, Chychrun, we're not comparing these two, but these are the types of situations.
The concept is still the same.
Yeah, the concept is the same in that these are the types of situations the Ducks are going to be faced with moving forward. Of, okay, we've kind of torn this down, we're slowly rebuilding. Now, where do we want to allocate assets and flip them to make this even better? And for Eichel, the reason I was pretty bullish on it was because this is a top line center. He's young. That is what truly moves the needle in the NHL. For me, Chychrun, look, he might long term be a first pairing defenseman. I mean, he probably already is that now. But I just I can't bring myself to think to just really be convinced that this
I
is the
mean,
guy I want to spend capital on.
yeah, I mean,
Maybe I'm just not. Maybe I haven't watched enough of him play.
prior
Maybe
last
that's part of
season,
it.
last season playing all 56 games at 22 to 23 years old, 78th percentile of WAR, 86th percentile of even strength offense, 52nd even strength defense, 93rd percentile on the power play, 100th percentile in terms of shooting. So there's that for the scoring, but 73rd
Yeah.
percentile on the PK. So I mean, he's a damn good hockey player and had a really good season last year, and it's fallen off this year. But I mean, how much of that is just playing in a bad situation, a
And the
really,
Coyotes
really bad
have been
situation?
historically bad.
Yeah.
So again, like I don't deny that he's a good player. I don't deny that he's playing, top pairing minutes. I just, and it's funny because in our Discord, I was making the case for why first round picks are overvalued. But I guess I would just be a little careful to sell the house to get this guy.
I think you use, and this is what I've come back to, I don't know if I would necessarily give away the assets that the Ducks already have as their own. Yeah. I would be more looking to flip the assets that you get from Lindholm and Manson. So essentially it becomes Lindholm and Manson for Jakob Chychrun.
I think that that's the smart play. Because I'm just not so sold on him as a guy that I want to use my own money on. But if I can use someone else's money off a guy that I'm going to lose anyway in Lindholm or Manson, then sure, it makes sense.
I mean, long term, let's just say a year or two, or let's go 3 years down the line. What's better for the Ducks 3 or 4 years down the line? Jakob Chychrun or Lindholm and Manson?
I mean, is that even a question? Well, but the answer is Jakob Chychrun.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly. Hence.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. And this is kind of, this circles back to something that we've both been seeing a lot of online, is that every time we bring up lately the idea of trading the pending UFAs, there's been a lot of pushback because the Ducks are in first place. They're playing well. They're beating teams. Why would you want to break this thing up? And again, it goes back to what you were saying earlier of you don't want to just go all in on this year. You want to try to stretch this thing out for as long as you possibly can. Mm-hmm. And the way to do
contending windows.
Exactly, is by remaining as flexible as possible.
Yep.
And so that's kind of where we're at here.
Yep. All right. So before we get into any more topics, like we're going to discuss the past week of hockey, I think it's time for a word from our sponsor, Felix. So Green Chef is a CCOF certified meal kit company, and they make eating well easy for you. You can enjoy your greens by having the most, you can enjoy your greens while being green with the most sustainable meal kit. Green Chef is the most sustainable meal kit, offsetting 100% of their plastic packaging in every box and 100% of their carbon footprint and emissions. Green Chef pre-portioned ingredients means you'll actually reduce your food waste by at least 25% compared to your shopping or grocery shopping, and it's convenient and easy. Green Chef makes cooking easy so you can spend less time stressing and more time enjoying delicious home-cooked meals. Green Chef's pre-made and pre-measured sauces, dressings, and spices get you more chef-curated flavor in less time, so you can avoid long lines at the grocery store. Green Chef is so convenient with pre-portioned, easy-to-follow recipes that are delivered right to your door. Green Chef saves you time by taking care of meal planning, grocery shopping, and most of the prep work for you week after week, so you don't have to. And it's deliciousness delivered, Felix. With fresh produce, premium proteins, and organic ingredients you can trust, Green Chef is the #1 meal kit for eating well. They offer 35 nutritious and flavorful options to choose from every week, featuring premium clean ingredients that are seasonally sourced for peak freshness. Green Chef is always changing variety of easy-to-follow recipes when there's something new to discover each week, so you never get bored. And with Green Chef, you get hand-picked organic veggies and premium proteins, so you can feel great about what you're eating and how it got to your table. So Felix, what are some of kind of your favorite Green Chef recipe? Green Chef has been a long time sponsor of this pod, and they've been kind enough to send us some meals. And I mean, I've said this many times. My wife has enjoyed them so much that she's thrown them all in a binder. And so, Felix, what have been some of your favorites?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone by now that listens to our podcast or that's been in our Discord knows that I love burgers. I'm a big fan. And they have a beef burger with tomato shallot aioli. They actually went all out on these Italian-inspired burgers, flavored with oregano, garlic seasoning, topped with melty mozzarella. Very special sauce. I mean, some of the best burgers you'll have. And nothing like oven roasted potatoes. So yeah, it's healthy, but it's also extremely delicious.
Yeah, and the nice thing is they obviously offer different things for your different diets. They offer balanced meals, they offer
The burger
keto,
diet.
paleo, everything. But on their menu this week, just some options for you out there. If you were looking to take advantage of this code and use it this week, they have a chicken and broccoli bowls with kale, pickled radish, and carrots, spicy ginger, lime, aioli. They have lemon herb shrimp bowls with red bell pepper, cabbage, parmesan, and toasted walnuts. And every meal, I say this, and this is my own experience with it, has been fantastic. They're so delicious, and I just want to make it again. And that just goes to show just how good it is and how delicious it is that it makes me want to have it again. And so if you want to be like us and enjoy some Green Chef, you can go to greenchef.com/CTP130 and use code CTP130 to get $130 off plus free shipping. Once again, that's greenchef.com/CTP130 and use code CTP130 to get $130 off plus free shipping. Green Chef, the #1 meal kit for eating well.
I'm proud of you, Jake. You got the code right. Oh, your face right now.
Inside joke.
Your face right now. Anyway, okay, let's just move on from that. Okay, so the Ducks played 2 hockey games last week.
They did. Why does it feel like they played more?
Look, they had the crazy road trip before that. We've kind of been in this crazy schedule of watching these games and reacting to them and doing shows, doing podcasts. So maybe that's why.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why it feels like more.
Yeah.
Let's start with I want to start with this, and it ties into what we saw on Friday. So you and I did a watch along on Friday, which was a lot of fun. Thank you to everybody who joined us on our Patreon. We'll get more into that after the show, how you can join in on the fun. Max Comtois, though, making his return to the Ducks lineup. And so the Ducks lost to Arizona 6-5 in overtime on Friday. Kind of just one of the weirder games I think I've seen this season. Just like a lot of things not really making sense that, because on Wednesday, so the Ducks beat Seattle on Wednesday 4-1. And one of the big points I made was that, the difference with this year's team and maybe teams of the past is that it feels like you can count on them to beat the teams that you expect them to beat. Right? So they beat up a Seattle team, and then you think, okay, they're going to play Arizona now. This should be another, I don't want to call it a cakewalk, but another game where you can kind of pencil them in to find a way. And they basically did everything they could to find a way to lose, it seemed like.
Yeah.
So Max Comtois, though, being back, I think that's kind of the story I want to start with. First off, your thoughts on him returning into the lineup and him being on a line with Ryan Getzlaf and Troy Terry.
Yeah, I think that's the right decision. I think putting him in a position to succeed is the correct way to do it. And obviously where he was at prior to missing some games, or missing, a month, essentially getting the surgery on his hand, it was not putting him in a position to succeed. And so I think he looked a little rusty. I think there were some plays that maybe looked a little bit off, and I think that there's some refinement in his game, but he was still able to get some looks. I mean, he was able to get in on a breakaway. He wasn't able to score, but I think that was really good from him to see, or good to see from him, was a couple of those scoring chances for him, even if he wasn't necessarily able to cash in on them. And I mean, this was a weird game for that line specifically. I mean, that line in general is typically such a dominant line, yet Troy Terry in this game was at 23% expected goals for percentage. And so it was just a weird game overall. And so I don't necessarily know if I want to make any big sweeping judgments on players from this game in terms of their on-ice play and the long-term process, because I think that there are just going to be some weird ones in an 82-game season. I think that in some ways you can just chalk this one up to being that. And so I think the positives I saw were that he was able to get himself into good spots, be able to create some scoring chances. There were a couple times he looked a little bit behind the play, and maybe working off some cobwebs, and that's expected, right? After a month, right?
I have some bad news.
Okay.
Max Comtois has a tendency to do those things, even when he's
Fair.
fully
Fair.
fully up
I'm
to
giving
speed.
him the benefit of the doubt right now. I fully admit that.
No, and I think that's totally reasonable. Just because if you look at the totality of his season so far, had the issue with the hand, said that it was bothering him, got off to a terrible start. Although we shouldn't mention that his quote unquote terrible start was basically just him not getting points.
Yeah.
If you look at the underlying numbers, was basically playing the same exact way.
Yeah.
But those narratives they can pile on guys, and I think that it was for him. Now coming back though, I thought that the sensible move for Max Comtois was to put him in a position like with Ryan Getzlaf and Troy Terry, because he's not a guy who you can put on a bottom line that the Ducks currently have, like with a Sam Carrick, a Buddy Robinson, one of these grinder types, where he's going to do well. He's not really a playmaker. He's a guy who is smart enough to, when he's playing with other playmakers, to get into those soft spots, to get into those quiet areas, and to finish plays. He can't do that when he's playing with grinders. And so when Dallas Eakins was doing that to him in the beginning of the season, it never made complete sense, because he's not the kind of player who's really going to work his way out of that. He's just going to flounder, and that's what we saw. So I think that just kind of putting him right back to the top, it makes sense. And now, I mean, this is kind of more of a long-term issue, and we don't even know. I mean, now the Ducks have longer to think about this, but as Comtois comes back, as Jones eventually comes back, there's a bit of a logjam at forward for the Ducks.
Yeah. There definitely is, but I mean, it's a good problem to have.
Oh, it's a great problem to have. I mean, at some point, I just don't think we'll see Derek Grant playing on the third line
No.
with Lundstrom and Silfverberg.
No, I completely agree. I think that's probably where Adam Henrique is probably going to eventually settle into. I think that's the perfect spot for him. Or potentially maybe a Rickard Rakell goes there.
Yeah, I mean, once Henrique let's just start with Henrique. Once Adam Henrique is back, where do you put him? Because I would imagine you're not going to break up the Rakell, Zegras, Milano line.
No.
I think that's untouchable.
Yes and no. I think Adam Henrique could fit on that line potentially if they wanted to try Rakell with Lundstrom and Silfverberg.
I would be very, very hesitant to break that up.
I agree. I'm just saying. I'm just throwing options out there.
I think it's worth thinking about. It's worth thinking about it just to see. And then for Henrique, I mean, is he better served with Getzlaf and Terry? Or, because, I mean, the thing with the Lundstrom-Silfverberg line is whoever you put there, what kind of assignment they're going to be getting, right? It's going to be a defensive assignment. And Henrique kind of fits that bill. I think what I like about him is that, in theory, if you have a Lundstrom and Silfverberg tandem there who's able to get the puck into the zone, he is the kind of guy who's responsible enough to hold up his end of the bargain defensively and finish off plays on the other end. And we've seen flashes of playmaking from Lundstrom to where maybe it could work.
Yeah, and especially on the fact that Silfverberg and Lundstrom haven't necessarily dominated play on their own side.
I also just think putting Rakell there is a waste.
That's fair.
You're trying to trade Rakell, right?
Yeah, no, I that's fair.
Putting him with Lundstrom and Silfverberg just is not going to help his trade value
completely. And I think
let's just put it that way.
And I think Adam Henrique is a fairly good play driver, especially offensively. If you look at, and I'll put on the screen right now.
He's aging very gracefully.
Yeah, he is. And I put on the screen right now his RPM chart for this season specifically, and he's driving offense in a way that not a lot of players on the Ducks necessarily have. And so I'll do a compare skater. Let me do Adam Henrique, and I'll do Jakob Silfverberg just to see. And I think Adam Henrique is a guy that can really negate some of the flaws within Silfverberg's game. And I think that it would be a good kind of matchup. And so you can see Silfverberg just does nothing for you offensively. Does a decent enough job at limiting shot attempts against. But this is a situation where I think having Henrique there gives that line a look that they don't necessarily have right now, especially with Derek Grant being there instead of Adam Henrique. Yeah. And I mean, I'll throw Derek Grant on there now, and I think he's been a little bit better this year, but still bad.
He's actually not been horrendous. He's just been suboptimal.
Yeah. So
like you see the chart. Like he's still not doing a ton for you, but he's at least not completely killing you when he's out there.
Yep. So I think that's probably the path that they'll take, because I think you want to get, unless Comtois just really shits the bed, with Getzlaf and Terry before Henrique gets back.
Which is not unfathomable, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, he might just not score enough to convince the coaching staff to leave him there.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think that if that's the case, maybe we see Comtois dropped in the lineup and Henrique goes back with, I mean, because Getzlaf, Terry, Henrique was a really, really good line when they were healthy. And so maybe that's where they go. So there's a lot basically kind of that can happen. I think the most likely situation is Comtois stays with Getzlaf and you have Henrique with Lundestrom and Silverberg.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a bit of a dilemma long term for the Ducks with Max Comtois, because he is a hard guy to fit on unless he's scoring, he's not doing a ton for you, and he really has to be on a line where there are two strong play drivers. And so, I mean, we'll see. Like, there's still so much runway left for him. I want to give him at least 20 games just to see, okay, what is this going to look like? Hopefully with Getzlaf and Terry. I think you just have to be really patient with Comtois. And, it's funny because people get on me for not being patient with guys. The thing is, this guy can score, right? And that's the most valuable thing. So if you can just get to a point where the other stuff is okay enough, then you have a player. And either a guy that you have long-term or a guy that you can trade. Yep. So I guess I'll throw this question at you. When everyone's healthy, what's your Ducks lineup looking like right now? So everyone
healthy, I would probably go with...
Let's start with line one.
Line one is going to be Raquel, Zegras, Milano.
Milano, yeah.
And,
I just want to throw a quick side question at you. Is there any chance that when everyone is healthy, Milano's not in this lineup anymore?
No.
Okay. Moving on.
He should have been in the lineup in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems insane now to leave him on the in the press box in favor of like a Max Jones.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, honestly, actually, I'm gonna throw a curveball at you.
Ooh, okay.
I'm changing things up.
Is it a curveball or a changeup? Yeah,
it's a curveball because I'm switching up my first line that I did. I'm gonna do Terry, Zegras, Milano.
Ooh. I gotta say, every time Terry and Zegras have been on the ice together, even for like 20 seconds, I get a little excited because I'm like, what's about to happen? And there have been some flashes, but there hasn't been enough time for them to really gel this season. But I have no issues with that. Like, that could be their top line for the next 3 years.
Yeah, it could be, and that's why. Because you want like, at a certain point, you want to find who Terry's going to be with long term. And I think that Terry Zegras is going to be that connection long term. I think Milano is a great fit for now, but I think long term, Terry Zegras together is going to be that pairing that you want. And so why not start now?
Terry and Milano are not that far apart in age. I mean,
true.
Terry's 24.
I just think Terry's a better player.
I mean, Milano's been damn good this year, but I get your point.
Terry's actually been one of the best players in the league.
Yeah, but I mean, if you look at Milano's charts, like, he has just been insane. But yeah, I mean,
why not put all three together?
Well, that's why I agree. That's why I like the idea. But I just want, I want Milano to be properly respected because, let's face it, hasn't gotten a lot of that so far in his NHL career. Okay, so your line one is Troy Terry, Sonny Milano, and Trevor Zegras. Fair enough. I co-sign that. Who is your line two?
My line two would then be Comtois, Getzlaf, Raquel.
Okay. See, that's the thing. I don't love that line as much anymore.
I don't either, but it's a second line.
You've put all your best eggs in the same basket. But I get it. I
mean, it's for a second line, it's still a really good second line, right? Raquel, because Getzlaf and Raquel have history together, and with Getzlaf playing the way he has this year, that connection's worked in the past.
I guess my only concern with that line is that there's not really like a dual threat outside of maybe Getzlaf, right? Like Raquel's not really known as a playmaker. Comtois is definitely not. So Getzlaf's really going to have to be the distributor there. And I think that's why Terry and him work so well together, because even though Terry has said so many times, like, I've made it a point of shooting more, I think the reason he gels so well with Getzlaf and why he's so effective is because he is still a threat to pass on top of him shooting. But anyway, I do agree with you, though. It's a fine line.
Yeah.
So you've got Comtois, Getzlaf, and Raquel. So I'm guessing your third line is still going to have 2 Swedes on it.
It's going to be Henrik, Lundestrom, Silverberg, just with the way everything's set up.
And that's a good third line.
Ideally, I would have that as my fourth line, honestly, in an ideal world where you have more depth and better depth to work with.
Well, especially the way Silverberg's played this season, which has been not great.
Yeah. And then the fourth line, I would probably go with Jones, Carrick, Steele. Yeah.
I mean, I've seen people say Buddy Robinson instead of Steele.
Buddy Robinson is actually, like, during the minutes, granted, a very small sample size.
Tiny sample.
Very tiny. So could just be a variant situation.
Petite sample.
He's looked good, though.
Yeah, he's looked fine. I mean, between Buddy Robinson and Sam Steele, I don't have any.
No, and I guess if you want to make the argument of long-term planning for this team, it's better to play Sam Steele there as compared to Buddy Robinson.
You want to either see if Steele can be a player for you or if you can showcase him. So.
Oh, Bonnie's making a really fun point in the Twitch stream that I'm not just going to use completely against her because you know that's what we do. She's saying you can add in upcoming prospect / goals to the potential third line. You know, that works out well. You trade Raquel, you call up Jacob Perreault. Sorry, Bonnie.
You flipped that real quick.
I did.
I think for next season, assuming Mason McTavish is on the team, and Ryan Getzlaf re-signs, is he your fourth line center?
He would be my third line center with Lundestrom as my fourth line center.
Oh, you're gonna piss off people with that take, but it's true. I mean, I made this very loud and clear on, I think, the last pod that Isaac Lundstrom's gotten a bit overrated this season. And look, before you jump on me for using the word overrated, I think he's been fine, but he's not, like, the discourse around him is out of whack with the on-ice product. Anyway, so I would agree with that. At some point, Jacob Perreault will be in there. I mean, maybe now Braden Tracy has worked his way into this conversation, although it's hard to say with the AHL. I'm trying to think. I mean, Sasha Pasajov, I don't know how many years away he is, though. So, yeah, I mean, like, that's the game you get to play now. Like, when you get to the point when you start trading guys out, is that you can start really thinking about how this is going to look longer term.
And that's the exciting part.
And for the Ducks, it looks good. Yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah. So,
okay.
Anything else from the games that you want to talk about? I mean, the Ducks dominated Seattle. That was probably one of the most dominant performances I think they've had all season.
Yeah, they smashed Seattle.
Like, I mean, the Raquel Zegras Milano line was just toying with them. There was one shift in that game, I believe it was in the second period, where Zegras gets the puck behind the net, and it's on edge. Tried the Michigan, but wasn't able to get on a stick. Then ends up with the puck again as he's skating behind the net, slams on the brakes, and you instantly see 2 guys from Seattle push to challenge him, and it opens up a passing lane to Raquel to finish it. And so it's like, this is what that type of play does. And like we went into depth on that play last week, but I mean, it opens up different scoring chances and opens up different scoring lanes that wouldn't have necessarily been there. Typically if he slams on the brakes there and hadn't pulled that off, guys aren't going to challenge him like that, and they're going to defend with sticks and passing lanes to stop the pass to the front of the net because that's the most dangerous option. But now that he's shown that your stick being on the ice doesn't do jack shit if he just goes over the net. And so they have to push him, and it opens up passing lanes for him to find guys. And I think Raquel hit the post on that shot. And so, yeah. Real quick on Pasajov, I think he's eligible to play in the AHL next year if they want to put him there.
Ooh, that could be fun.
Mm-hmm.
That could be fun.
Because he played in the USHL to go to college hockey originally, and then made the switch to the CHL. I believe he's not. The CHL NHL rules don't apply to him as a result, or CHL AHL rules.
I feel like we missed the biggest headline of the season.
The biggest.
Someone's hacking, coughing in your background. The biggest headline is Jacob Larson getting called back up last Friday. I mean, total depth call up, like didn't play. He's being already jostled around, movement wise. I want to quickly ask you this though: have you been to a Gulls game in San Diego?
Yeah, multiple.
How are they?
They're fun.
I've never been to one.
Yeah, they're a good time.
I've never been to one, and now if Sasha Pasajov is playing for San Diego, like I have to go.
If next season, if it's Pasajov and Perreault playing together,
oh my god, Oh my God. I mean, we don't know how these guys will be in the NHL, although we have a pretty good feeling. But in the AHL, those guys are going to light it up.
I mean, here's the question. It's just whether or not that's the best place for him. I mean, at the end of the day, he is still a...
these guys are so young.
Yeah. And
yeah.
I just am realizing this. The bummer for the Ducks, McTavish is 30 days away from being eligible to play in the AHL last year. Or next year. Sorry, not last year.
Yeah.
30 days away. Well, born on Jan 30th.
People are saying I didn't go when Zegras and Drysdale were down there. They weren't down there.
They were in Irvine.
They were in Irvine, California, which I've been to many times, trust me, and couldn't get in anyway.
Yeah, I'm trying to think who was. I think I went to one of the playoff games in San Diego where Isaac Lundestrom scored on his own goal with an empty net, where the goalie was pulled. So that was fun.
Okay.
I'm trying to think. I went down there during their first season, and
why do you have a Grady shirt?
Because I went to Philly.
I just noticed this.
Yeah.
Oh, terrible. Terrible.
I'm trying to think about who that first season. I think that. Oh yeah, that was Shea Theodore. I have a Shea Theodore goals jersey.
Oh, that's a nice one.
Yeah, Shea Theodore 27 goals jersey.
A little PTSD inducing for some.
I mean, he was so good in San Diego.
Oh yeah, I mean, him and Montour were just lighting it up points wise.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So I don't know where we were going. Should we move on to questions?
Yeah, let's move on to questions. We got a bunch in Discord.
Yeah, we got a ton.
We're gonna hit Discord first, and then we will get to Twitch. So let's go with this. On a scale, this starts with Hey Odiflo. God, there are a lot of questions.
Should just point out, by the way, that if you become a patron of ours, we have a Discord, which if you don't know what Discord is, it's basically just like a chat. And we have a channel just for podcast questions. So if you submit a question prior to the show, we'll let you know, hey, get them in if you want them. We will get to yours first. We will prioritize yours. So yeah. Check that out.
Real quick, Goons Never Say Die. Zellweger is not eligible for the AHL next year. He's 2 years away from being eligible based upon his age.
He's real young.
Well, yeah, he said basically the rule is if you were drafted in the CHL, you have to turn 20 before January 1 of that season. So yeah. Nick Ritchie was eligible after playing 1 year back in junior because he's born in like November or December or something like that.
Who's your favorite goal of all time?
Trevor Zegras.
Okay, fair enough. We'll move on.
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure you just,
was that what
pulled a rabbit out of your hat? But
how is what? Whatever.
Anyway,
okay.
Move on.
Moving on. Hey Odiflo said, on a scale of 1 to 10, how buzzed was Felix last night?
Yeah, what is this narrative? On Sunday night, I tried to play a prank on the Discord by posting McDavid to Montreal like meme from Instagram that you fell for, by the way.
No,
should point out
how from an account that was Canadian spelled DIANS.
I may have had a couple of adult beverages, but at that point I was fine. So
also, you also put in Discord that you were drinking AMA.
Oh wow, I forgot about that. Well, oopsies. Maybe it's a 4 out of 10 then.
Okay. Ducks Golfing, a longtime moderator for the show in Discord and longtime listener, said, kind of would like to hear your thoughts on if you truly believe the NHL statement on the rest of the regular season being completed in its full length, because he's very skeptical about that statement. I mean, we touched on this a little bit earlier. I think they're going to play it. I mean, they went out of their way to play 56 games last season. I think they're going to go out of their way to play 82 this year.
I mean, I think skepticism is definitely warranted.
Yeah.
Like, I think being skeptical is 100% justified, and I think that the skeptical argument might even be better than what you just said. But I tend to agree that they will just find a way. I think that if they can buckle down, they can get through it, but it will be immensely challenging.
I think they have to go back to the old protocols.
I just don't think that they've yet fully grasped like how hard this is going to be, because again, this is only going to get more challenging.
Yep. So let's see. Zuzle said, not really a question, but I would like to hear your thoughts on Sam Carrick.
He's been good.
Yeah. He
Sam Carrick is one of the best stories of the season for the Ducks.
He had a rough game against the Coyotes, took a really dumb penalty that led to a goal against, and just had a rough game overall. But that was kind of the first bad game from him, I would say.
Sure, but I mean, again, keep in mind he's a fourth liner.
Yeah.
Like compare him to the other fourth liners that the Ducks have banked on.
Correct.
In recent years.
Correct.
He has been excellent, and I mean, just this last week, the Gulls named a new captain, Greg Patterin, which all but confirms, because Sam Carrick was their captain previously, that he's not going back. So, congratulations to him. I'm sure he's listening to this. Sam Carrick is.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But he's been great. I mean, he's actually turned into a bit of an analytics darling. So. And you can kind of see it the way he plays, right? Like he plays a very simple game. There's not a lot of high quality chances against when he's out there, and when he's in the offensive zone, he's able to control it along the wall and behind the net, and just either get it back to the point or just not catastrophically turn it over. So he's been an effective fourth liner for the Ducks, and it's crazy the difference that can make for a team, right? To not have a fourth line that is a complete anchor. Is a huge difference maker. So credit to Sam Carrick.
Yep. All right. Charbonneau said, what are your top 3 traits in a prospect? For him, it's skating, skill, and hockey sense.
Oh, top 3 traits. You said that like trades, like with a D.
Oh, traits.
Traits. Top 3 traits. So I don't know if this is in order. You already said skill, skating, hockey sense.
That's what he said.
That's what he said. I mean, I would tend to agree with that. I think skating ability is hugely important, right? If you're a bad skater, that's a big demerit. But we see guys like Sasha Pasajov who can mitigate that. So,
I would say shot is a big thing for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, the biggest thing is just, I think hockey sense is kind of the most nebulous one because it's so hard to explain. But it is a big one. It's just, and you can see it in terms of their pass selection, shot selection, when they time their dekes coming through the neutral zone. I think that hockey sense is right up there. Obviously, skating is really important. And then I would say just overall offensive creativity, right? And so what I mean by creativity is just, is this a guy who can dictate the play? Is this a guy who can kind of make a shift his own? Because there are some guys who are good wheels, who are good cogs in a system, but there are very few guys who can be the system. And so that's kind of what I look for, is how well can this guy dictate the play, or how well can he just keep up with it, which kind of goes more into hockey sense. So I would say hockey sense, skating, and just overall offensive creativity. And so I lump in shot, passing, stick handling into all of that.
Okay. I'm going to leave you just on that one. I'm not giving an answer.
You disagree?
No, I'm just letting you have your answer, and that's it.
By the way, notable omissions, size, physicality.
Oh yeah. What I did as my joke answer was I said grit, size, and heart.
Yeah, how well can you play the sport is all I really care about.
Yeah.
Right? Like that,
okay.
long-winded answer of saying that.
Tenacious G85 has this, and I think it's a really good question. My overly complicated attempt at a first question. I think that he just joined the Patreon today. So thank you so much.
Welcome.
If you were given control of the lineup from the Arizona game and adding in any injured players I may be forgetting, and told you needed to turn it into a contending team immediately with as few changes as you think possible, how many of the current roster would make your cup contending team? Just trying to get a handle on how many pieces the Ducks are missing after surprising a lot of people this year.
I mean, that's a great question. I would say that if you look at the roster, the lineup we just did, kind of gives you a little bit of a feel. Are there really any pieces out there right now, though, that are going to bring the Ducks that much closer? I guess our job right now is to get them there.
I think that if you're trying to just purely, if you were trying to make this team this year, not worry about the future, this team this year a cup contender. And that's it. That's your sole job.
I think you're keeping some of the guys you would otherwise trade.
Well, I think that the defense, is actually perfect. I think the defense that they have right now is...
Leave that.
That could be a cup contending defense. I think where they're really missing out is in the third line. I think if you make their third line a fourth line, and you have Max Jones, Lundestrom, Silverberg, I think that is a completely serviceable fourth line, and that's something that's on par with, what was it? Tampa's fourth line last year was known as their like elite fourth line or whatever it was, with Coleman, Gaudreau, and Yanni Gourde.
Ideally, you need a top 9 offensively.
Yeah.
Like right now, the Ducks have a top 6. You need a third line that can score some goals, and they don't have that.
I think they're missing a high-end third line center and another high-end third line winger.
Maybe an upgrade in net.
Wow.
Kidding.
I think that Henrique plus 2 more higher end players on that third line could make them into a legitimate contender.
I mean, you could just call up Jacob Perreault and see what he has.
Jacob Perreault, Mason McTavish, Adam Henrique. I mean, honestly, not horrible.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess we don't really have names off the top of our heads right now, but that would be the thing immediately that you would need to change.
Jack Eichel? Honestly, Jack Eichel would have made them a cup contender this year to me.
Well, knowing what we know now, yes.
Yeah. So, all right.
You were not singing this tune previously.
What do you mean?
You were not.
No. Yeah. Sorry, I got what you're saying. Yeah. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Okay.
I'm giving you the credit there. Okay. SP84, our good friend Spencer says, "Who is the best defenseman in the NHL under 20 playing in California, and how old is he?"
How old is Ryan Merkley in the Sharks system? How old is he on the Barracuda? He might be 20, actually. Crap. I mean, I guess it's Jamie Drysdale.
And how old is he?
Answering this? I don't know. I forgot. Weird. It just escaped my memory.
For those who don't know, there's a running joke in our Discord about the fact that Jamie Drysdale's 19 and Felix hates it.
No, it's not that I hate it. It's that I get reminded about it every time I say anything about how he's playing.
All right. Lewis says, "Does Felix get Flight Simulator?" We're just getting all the Discord beats right now, and people are going to be so confused. I mean, join Discord. And follow up from that, from Kempafu. Does Felix get Farming Simulator, and does Felix get Goat Simulator?
Oh, God.
Would you like to answer these important questions?
I really want to get Flight Simulator, but someone needs to sell me on it. That's why I keep asking every day in the same exact wording.
All right.
Please.
All right, back to a hockey question. Ferda Duck said, "The goals have been struggling this year. Does that undermine Joel Bouchard's case for replacing Dallas Eakins next year? Also, with so many NHL teams looking to replace their GMs and or head coaches this year, does that put the Ducks at a disadvantage in finding a new GM or replacing Eakins?" So the first part of the question about Bouchard. Do you think how bad the goals have been this year undermines his case?
I don't really think that matters. It's the fact that the Ducks have been this good, right?
Yeah.
Like, who cares ultimately about how the goals have been? It's the fact that the Ducks have been so improved in all these different facets. That is what hurts Bouchard's case.
And I think the one thing that I'll add to that on Bouchard is the Ducks kind of communicated to us over summer that Bouchard wasn't necessarily brought in to win games in the AHL. He was brought in for player development.
Right, and that's the thing. When we had these conversations, that's why he was targeted. And I think that makes sense, right? So he was never being graded on that scale anyway of wins and losses.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, look, let's say that Eakins isn't back next year, which I am finding more and more implausible. Do you think Joel Bouchard has a chance at the coaching job for the Ducks?
No, I think you would bring in a guy with more experience.
I think at this point you need someone who's a little more proven, or I don't know. Maybe I'm being inconsistent here because we always talk about you don't want to retread, but the Ducks are going to have a good roster, and you don't want to mess with that. So tough decisions ahead. I will still be betting on Eakins being back next year, though.
And then the second part of the question about, are the Ducks at a disadvantage at finding a new GM because there are so many teams looking for a GM?
Not really, because they have a really, really good candidate in-house already.
Yep.
So they have that, and not every team can say that.
Yep. Agreed completely. I mean, you and I are both on the boat of just make Jeff Solomon the GM.
We've been on that since day one, and I stand by it. Just give that man a chance.
Yep. Let's see. Appa AG said, do we let Zegras run the Ducks Twitter account for a day? The Ducks should do it.
Yes. Yes. Unquestionably, yes.
Yep. And so I think that's gonna do it for Discord. I think we got through it. So anyone on Twitch. Let me start with this. YouTube. Yes, YouTube. I see you. I see everyone. Oh, I should mention, you do the spiel, I'll find the YouTube comment.
What spiel?
The spiel for Twitch.
Okay. So are we talking about questions?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you have questions right now, please throw them in if you're in the Twitch chat. If you want to join in on that fun, every Monday we do a live stream of this show. So at Mondays at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, you can join us at twitch.tv/Crash the Pond. Make sure to subscribe to us there. It helps out the show a ton. And if you have an Amazon Prime subscription, you get one free Twitch Prime subscription. You do have to, I think, manually renew that every month, but that goes and helps the show out quite a lot. So right now, if you are in the Twitch chat, please throw in your questions. Make sure to put questions just so that we can see them. And we already have one here, so I'm just going to get right into it.
Real quick before you do this, I want to mention this because this was something we had mentioned last week with YouTube. And so, yes, youtube.com/CrashThePond. Go find us there. Subscribe to us there. We view the comments. There was that comment from RJ Mateko, and so we had read that from him about being kind of stuck over in the UK and quarantining with COVID. He had mentioned that was extremely surprising to hear from you guys. Praying I get back this Friday, and if not that day, hopefully Monday. So hopefully you're back today, RJ, and thank you guys for the response. Genuinely made my day. As soon as I get back in the States, you can count on me being a Patreon with all my fellow Ducks friends. Thanks again, guys. We'll be waiting for the next episode to be released. So hopefully we could brighten up your day a little bit there, and hopefully you made it back safe and sound.
Hell yeah. Rooting for you.
Yep.
Okay. We got a question from Bonnie in the Twitch chat. If Larson cannot score at AHL, I'm assuming that means in the AHL, is the experiment finally over? I mean, the experiment's been over, right? Like let's define experiment.
He got put on waivers and no one wanted him for free.
Well, I mean, it's not just that, because that was beginning of the season.
Technically, that also happened with Milano, so true.
Yeah, it's more so the fact that you saw what he was in the NHL, which was like disastrously bad. Maybe maybe this is gonna come off weird, but you've seen how some of the Ducks defensemen this season have rebounded, how well they have played.
Are you gonna do this
in this newer system? I mean, maybe you want to see Larson in that system and see how he does. I think he was so disastrously bad, though, previously that it kind of doesn't matter, and then he would be bad regardless. But this is a new environment, so maybe you want to give him a chance. I just don't really know why you would do that, right? You have better options. Mahura has not done himself any favors, so maybe there's your case. See if he can outplay Mahura. But I think the experiment has been over for like years now, like actual years. He was bad a long time ago. I was saying it before anyone. People were telling me, just wait. And wait we did, and worse he got. So there you go.
Yep. Goons Never Say Die asks, should the Ducks try to trade Steele at the deadline?
I mean, this is a popular question about what to do with Sam Steele. Like, the first question you got to ask yourself there is, does anyone want Sam Steele? Yep. Like, what do you like? If you're another team, what are you willing to give out for what? A failed first-round pick at this point? Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, I think right now, if you're the Ducks, it doesn't look like Sam Steele is trending to be a top 6 talent, let alone a top 9 talent. And sure, he's had like 5 good games this season. Ideally, you just give him enough run to where he looks decent enough to where you can get as high of a pick as you can. But I don't know. It's going to be hard to get anything of value for him.
Yep, exactly. The Ducks maybe. I mean, Goons Never Say Die. I said give him a late pick for Sam Steele.
I mean, if we can get anything for him, fine.
Yeah. Let's see. Goons Never Say Die also has another question. Says, if the Ducks trade Hampus, Manson, and Raquel, do the Ducks start to lose more games and maybe miss the playoffs?
It depends. If they can get back a Jakob Chychrun and all of that, then maybe they can survive it. But it's hard to see a scenario where that doesn't really hurt their chances short term.
Let's just say post deadline, the Ducks end up with Chychrun, Drysdale, Fowler, let's go Fowler, Drysdale, Chychrun, Shattenkirk, Mahura, and you put Benoit as offside.
They're probably worse.
Probably. I mean, you got to figure out what you're gonna do on that right side. I guess that's gonna be the real question long term.
But like again, you're not trading those guys because you're concerned about.
No, I know. I'm just thinking it through. Maybe you try to get another player back for Raquel that can fill that right side.
I mean, it would definitely be a shame to kind of completely tank your blue line in a season where you do have some promise, but Like, again, you're doing this because of the long term, because
Yeah.
you believe in the long term.
Yeah. And I mean, maybe that's an argument to keep Manson, but I don't think they should.
No.
He hasn't been that great this year, even though his numbers look okay at a 5-on-5 perspective.
He's been fine.
His individual numbers have fallen off. So I think the Ducks are in a really nice position right now, though, where I don't know if they really can fall out of a playoff spot at this point.
It's going to be hard.
Like, it's possible, but I don't think it's likely.
It's going to be difficult.
I mean, where does Money Puck have them right now? I'm curious.
Uh-oh.
In terms of playoff odds.
Uh-oh.
What?
Nothing. It's just 73.9% to make playoffs.
So
like, basically 3 out of 4 times to make the playoffs in this current simulation.
Like, it's going to be really hard for them to miss at this point.
Yeah. Especially in this division.
Yeah.
So, but, I mean, we'll see. We don't know how the schedule is going to play out now.
True.
A lot of uncertainty.
Yeah.
But, I mean, by the trade deadline, you know, it's... Do you think there's any chance that they change course? Like come trade deadline, you're still in first place. Is there any chance that they hold on to everybody?
They won't unless they're extended.
Do you think there's any chance of that?
I think there's a chance of doing that with all 3 of them. I think there's a possibility for each of them.
Like who would be driving that bus from the Ducks organization? Like ownership?
Ownership.
You want a good team?
Ownership.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really key if you're Jeff Solomon there to let them know, hey.
I think there's an argument that you can make for all of them to be re-signed, but I think that there are big flaws that you can, or big holes that you can poke in every one that eventually, I mean, we've done this limbo.
The cons outweigh the pros.
Yeah, and we've kind of talked through it with Rickard Rakell even and tried to figure it out, and it doesn't make sense. And the issue with Lindholm is, and this kind of goes to Coldfire, who has a question right now, Coldfire725. If the Ducks were to re-sign Lindholm, what number would you be comfortable with at term and AAV?
Well, AAV is kind of irrelevant to me because I think he's going to get, close to.
And I had some people asking
7
me
to 8 range,
asking me why I think he's going to get I think he'll get 8 or 8.5 and people were asking me because he doesn't necessarily have the production. And so if you look at guys that he's more comparable to, like a Matthias Ekholm, those types of guys, and Matthias Ekholm, just so I can look him up, how much he got. Give me one sec here. Trying to pull him up. Matthias Ekholm got 6.25, a 6.25 mil extension. And so why do I think that he's going to get 8 in that range when he doesn't necessarily have the production that a Seth Jones has, that a Cale Makar has, that a Darnell Nurse has? And I think the argument that can be made is, first off, I do believe that they can take underlying metrics into contract negotiations now, because the NHL lists them as statistics on their website. They can't use expected goals, but I believe Jeff Merrick has said is once the NHL lists it as an official stat, they can utilize that in contract negotiations. And so who knows where he will be at. But the other thing is, once you hit the open market, it becomes a bidding war. And to me, Hampus Lindholm is a minute-eating defenseman that can play on a top pair. And maybe this is too much of conjecture without actual evidence behind it to back it up. But I think that there would be a bidding war for a player like him that a lot of teams would be jumping at.
Undoubtedly.
And that would cause him to hit the 8.5 mil range.
Well, again, so the question, though, I think...
True. What would you be... Sorry, that was a brief tangent based upon Twitter interactions.
No, the tangent is fine. But to the question, the AAV, I'm willing to eat the AAV because I think that that's what I would be pushing. Term is where I would not be very comfortable with. I mean, truly, anything beyond 5 years.
I do 8.5 times 5.
Yeah, like
I would do
absolute maximum.
I would do 8.5 times 5 more than I would do 8 times 6.
Right, exactly. Like that's what I'm saying. Like I would be willing to give out more money to be able to not have him for as long of term. I really think that for the Ducks, longer term is going to really. I mean, you've seen it with different players on this team, right? Like term is what really bites you and hurts your flexibility.
Yep.
But I don't think he would be willing to take that contract. I really don't. Like what is the benefit for Hampus Lindholm unless he just truly wants to be in Orange County? Besides, like over anywhere else.
Yep.
Right.
Ooh, here's an interesting question. Post deadline, UFAs are out. Would you rather see Larson, Gouli, Mahura on the squad in a full-time role, or a scenario where one of Thrun or Lacombe sign and burn their first year in their ELC? So just so everyone knows, Lacombe and Thrun, I believe they're both over 20 years old now, right? I'm not going crazy there.
Yeah.
They're both over 20. So if either of them get done in college and sign with the Ducks and play in a game for the Ducks, that burns a year right away. The whole 9-game thing only applies if you're 19 or younger.
So Thrun is 20. He's going to be 21 in March.
And Jackson Lacombe is 20 also. Going to be 21 in January. So yeah, I mean, here's the question honestly that I have with both of them. If you want them to sign and if you like them as prospects, this is when you need to do something to entice them to get out of college, because they are coming up on 4 years post-draft. 4 years post-draft is when they become free agents.
I mean, here's my question.
Is it worth doing that for either of them?
Well, I think that you can ask that for both sides of this. Like Larson, Gouli, Mahura. How much runway is left there? Like how much more data do we need on these guys to know what you have in them, right? I mean, Larson's a tire fire. Gouli is an AHLer, right? I mean, am I missing something there?
No.
Mahura, dangerously close to being a tire fire this season. And I had high hopes for him, but it's just not looking great. And what's weird with Mahura is like, this is the kind of system that you would think would optimize a player like him. And he just hasn't succeeded. So I'm really skeptical now of where that's going to come from. So I am kind of more curious to just see something else at this point. So I think the idea of giving Thrun and Lacombe a chance is just more intriguing than those three guys, because we've kind of seen it already. And maybe I'm writing them off, but we've seen a lot of them.
And here's my thing is, maybe some people would say, well, why would you burn the year, yada, yada, yada. And I mean, the reason for doing it is, like I was saying, either of them can go back to college next year. And they can go back to college, and then once they finish their season, they can leave and be a free agent, and the Ducks are not owning their rights anymore, and they lose them. Yep. Justin Schultz is a little bit of a different situation because it was a very kind of unique loophole. It's more so, I think, like what Adam Fox did.
Well, who's the Ducks example that I can't think of right now?
Justin Schultz is the example, but
no, there's another one, right?
No, Schultz was the big one.
There's a God damn it! The guy who played for the Leafs, and then the Hurricanes.
Jimmy Vesey?
The defenseman. Why can't I think of his name right
Adam
now?
Fox?
Jake Gardiner.
Oh, Jake Gardiner. No, Jake Gardiner was traded.
Oh, okay.
Jake Gardiner was traded for Joffrey Lupul.
Okay. Forget everything I just said then.
Jake Gardiner was on the team with Justin Schultz, though.
Okay.
In Wisconsin. I do remember that. No, Justin Schultz is a little bit of a different situation, but I think we've seen it with Troy Terry, right? He signed coming out of his college year, a little bit more of a high-profile guy, but, I mean, the thing with him is that it didn't necessarily impact his second deal or cause, like, his second deal has become one of the best value deals in the NHL this year because of him signing that deal and not having a 3-year ELC, more or less having a 2-year ELC. And he wasn't even eligible for an offer sheet last summer. So from that perspective, it's not a bad thing to burn the year. And so I think if you like Thrun and you like Lacombe as prospects, you need to do something to entice them to leave college. And you have them burn the year.
Yeah, exactly. Like you can't just assume that they're going to hang around forever.
No.
And again, I just don't see the value in the Ghoulies and like that ilk.
Lacombe, I'm less likely to honestly do it for because I don't necessarily think Jackson Lacombe is that great of a player. He had a good, I think, end to his year last year, but I'm just kind of looking at hockey prospecting's model, which granted isn't the best for defensemen as we've kind of talked about in the past, but in his D3 year, which is this current year, 52% NHLer, 6% star. Henry Thrun, 59% NHLer, 16% star.
By the way, when does the WJC start?
Like the 26th, right? I think Boxing Day.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Remember last year? Zegras Mania?
Yeah, I mean,
Now it's just Zegras mania in the NHL.
You want a sleeper pick for a Ducks prospect that's going to impress?
Bastujov?
Ian Moore.
Ian Moore? Okay.
I think Ian Moore is going to impress.
I mean, that is definitely a sleeper.
He's just someone that I really want to see because his profile when he was drafted by the Ducks was one that was really enticing.
Well, there was also a case that they kind of reached to get him.
A little bit.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's going to be a fun tournament to watch from the Ducks' perspective anyways. McTavish, Zellweger, Pastujov, Moore.
I think what's fun now is just that it's guys that you don't know as much about. Like, we already knew last year Zegras was amazing, right? Mm-hmm. It was just, like, seeing it. But yeah,
and I think Mason McTavish is going to dominate the tournament. I think he's just has the size to dominate this type of tournament. And so I think that I expect that, I guess. And so it's more so a sleeper pick with more of a guy that you don't necessarily expect to impress.
More.
So, yeah. Ha ha ha. So yeah, getting back to the question, I want to see Throne and Lacombe come into the Ducks and get a game or two, burn the year. It's not a big deal from the contract perspective.
Yep. Okay.
And I think that is it. Oh, by the way, Felix, I guess you ignored Dan Elder's text when he asked you if a player's ever played in the World Juniors and the Olympics in the same year.
Yeah, has that ever happened?
Troy Terry would have been the closest.
Yeah,
that was a year off though from each other.
It would have had to have happened. Oh man, that is a tough one. That's a good
question. Troy Terry played.
Maybe this is why I never replied because I just couldn't think of anything.
It would have been Troy Terry would have played. It was the 2017 World Juniors was when he went off, and then the 2018 Olympics.
So if you make it far enough from the World Juniors, you spill over into the next year. So I guess maybe Terry.
No, because no.
Yeah, no. Yeah, you're right. Tough one. Stumper.
Do you think USA wins gold? This is from Goons Never Say Die.
Sure.
Wow.
Sure.
Turning against your home country?
Well, I have no faith in Hockey Canada when it comes to the World Juniors. Like, they left Brant Clark off the roster. But Canada will likely win.
Zellweger, I'm also really excited to see.
I mean, you're asking me if USA has a chance. It's like, of course they have a chance. But Canada is the favorite. So
yeah. By the way, speaking of Team USA, and this is something I keep coming back to, and it's kind of nuts. That World Junior team and just that U.S. National Development Team program,
yeah,
we're going to look back on that team 5-10 years down the line, and it's going to be nuts how impactful that team was on the league as a whole.
Yeah, Alex Turcotte, really lighting it up. really just impacting the game.
He's going to be the forgotten player. Called up by the Kings today.
Was he? I thought it was just Byfield and...
Someone said him and Byfield. I think Wyshynski said it was him and Byfield.
Oh, I didn't see Turcotte. Yeah, I mean, there's a reason for that, though.
Yeah, but
it's not because of their play.
But he probably will be an NHLer. But, I mean, you'll have Jack Hughes, Alex Turcotte, Trevor Zegras, Cole Caulfield, Cam York, Spencer Knight. It's nuts.
Yeah. Yeah, how bad does Turcotte going ahead of Zegras look now?
How bad does a lot of players going ahead of Zegras look now?
Yeah, this has been a point of debate in our Discord. Is that redrafting the Zegras draft?
Zegras goes second.
So you're going that far. You're going that bold.
Yeah, I think you could start making an argument that he's up there with Jack Hughes. It's closer to a 1A 1B than a clear 1 and 2.
So you would solidly take him ahead of Bowen Byram, like no questions asked.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean Bowen Byram's amazing.
He is.
No question, but okay. I'm taking Trevor Zegras ahead of Kirby Dach, ahead of Capo Caco.
Mort Seider I'd have a thought on with how he's profiled this year.
No, it's Zegras over Seider. Don't even entertain that. Yeah, I mean at worst, I think Zegras is going third. I mean, he's in the top 3. I don't know how else the people will say Byram or Seider, but no, it's Zegras is in the top 3.
I mean, I'm drinking the Kool-Aid fully and just saying he's on par with Jack Hughes right now this season.
I mean, the fact that he went 9th behind Philip Broberg.
Oh, Broberg. Yeah, picture if Edmonton selected Zegras.
All due respect to Dylan Cousins and his size, but that also doesn't look great. Yeah, Why is it so hard for teams to just draft players who
Yeah,
are good at hockey?
Well, and I want to say this. Some people will say like, this is why you don't tank because you get Zegras at 9th, and it's like, no, that's not the argument for it. The argument for this is that teams don't scout players correctly and understand what they're looking at.
Yeah. I mean, you want to go earlier so you can make that
because
pick.
Zegras should have gone 2nd, 3rd.
I mean, it's just
4th.
Like, don't draft for size. Oh my God, how many times do I have to say it?
Yeah, don't draft guys for two-way ability.
Yeah, like guess what is easier to fill in the NHL between two-way ability and goal scoring? I'll give you a hint. It's not two-way ability. Anyway, on that note, should we wrap up?
Yeah, let's wrap it on up.
Left? Do we have anything left?
No, I think that's gonna be it for us.
Darn, this went by really fast.
Yeah,
kind of bummed it's over. We're just an hour and a half in. No biggie. All right, folks. Well, hey, if you enjoyed the show today, and if you want to help us keep this thing going, there's a couple of ways that you can do so. The number one is to check out our Patreon page, patreon.com/crashthepond. Now, for $1 a month, we've referenced it at least 75 times on the show today, but our Discord chat, for $1 a month, you get access to our patrons only Discord, which honestly is just my favorite hockey community online. You get to hang out with some of people who are just there to have a good time, to talk about the team, to joke around. It's all love in there. There's no negativity. And, you know, if you're a diehard Ducks fan in Southern California and maybe in your friend group you don't have a lot of other Ducks fans, well, hey, this is a good tribe to join in on. So that's for $1 a month. Now, for $5 a month, you get access to 2 bonus podcast episodes as well as the Discord channel. So with the Discord channel in there, you'll be able to suggest topics for these bonus episodes, as well as we mentioned earlier, you get to ask questions and have priority for the regular show. But on these bonus episodes, we get more into league-wide topics. We'll pick our awards winners league-wide. We'll do more deep dives on the Ducks, rank players, give letter grades, different things like that. So that's 2 bonus episodes a month on top of the 4 regular ones you get already. Now, for $15 a month, you get access to everything I just mentioned, as well as 2 watch-alongs a month. Now, these are so much fun. You get a private YouTube link with us where we get to just watch the game together, and you get our live commentary, analysis. You get more stats. You also just get a lot more shooting the breeze. It's a little casual, but it's just so much fun.
We play Christmas music.
Yeah, you have a chat in there, so you get to interact with us, and just a change of pace from your traditional hockey broadcast. So all of that is at patreon.com/crashthepond. And if you are a hardcore Ducks fan in 2021/22, I think this is a must-have in your arsenal because it will enhance your experience with this team. Okay, but if you don't want to do that, hey, totally understandable. There is another way to help us, which is completely free to you. We mentioned off the top of the show, search Crash the Pond on Apple Podcasts.
By the way, real quick side note for our Patreon, you need to go see Spider-Man No Way Home so that we can do a fully spoilered episode on it.
Okay, thank you for bringing that up right now. Thank you.
That's what I'm here for.
But yeah, so search us on Apple Podcasts, Crash the Pond. You can leave us a rating there and a review. It just takes a couple minutes, but if you do leave that review, we will read it on the show and have a lot of fun with it. You know, the more inside jokes, the more cracks at us you can mix in, the better. You can also find us on Spotify, find us on YouTube, youtube.com/crashthepond. You can find the video version of the show. You can see all the charts we put up as we do this thing, or as Jake puts up, I should say. You can see Jake's cat, Salem, live on the screen. I don't think we got an appearance today.
No, she came in and then left.
That's disappointing.
Yeah.
But anyway, she usually does make an appearance, though. So make sure to check out the YouTube, subscribe there, turn on your notifications. Check out our website, crashthepond.com. I mean, heck, it's already very late into the countdown here for Christmas. But if you do need a last-minute gift, consider ordering one of our lovely hoodies or T-shirts with our awesome logo. That's at crashthepond.com/shop. Jake is on Twitter at ReindeerGames91, and I am on Twitter at Felix_Sicard. I think that does it for our show today.
Yeah.
I don't think we've got anything else.
Yeah. I mean, keep an eye out. Maybe we do a Halo stream this week.
Oh, yeah. We've been playing an absurd amount of Halo.
Tonight?
I have 30 hours played so far, which is a lot.
After?
Yeah, of course. It was planned to begin with. But hey, I do want to say this though, because it is our last show until Christmas this Saturday. Merry Christmas to everybody.
And oh wait, I was about to say and a Happy New Year, but we might do a pod before that. Never mind.
Say it anyway.
Yeah, there you go.
Happy New Year. You know, it's been a roller coaster of a year, roller coaster of the last 2 years. We're still here. We're still kicking. We're still pushing. Thank you to everybody who's supported us all this way through. Hope you have a great time with your loved ones. Hope you enjoy some great food. Hopefully it is the kind of food that I would approve of. Can't speak for Jake though. You know his takes and how awful they are. I do want to point out, by the way, that your good buddy Daniel today had a very interesting comment that I want to air out on this show before we get out of here. This is what he said.
I'm letting him know you're calling him out.
Completely out of the blue today. He said, "So I just decided you both have bad food takes, and somehow you both have opposite opinions on things that are both wrong. So I can't even really parse out the logic in that because it's just so confusing. But I'll just say that he's wrong in that I have bad opinions. I agree with him in that you are wrong, but I am correct." That's all I wanted to say on that. Do you have any rebuttal? Anything you want to say to that?
I got nothing.
Okay. Well, that's because I'm right. All right. Well, hey, folks, thanks for listening. Have a great Christmas, and hope Santa doesn't leave you any coal in your stockings. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye, everyone.